What up, folks? Dude, I'm so excited to be back. Dude, I'm not even, I'm just going to say it right off the bat. Leon, you're a good looking dude. Um, I've got beautiful red flowy hair, but damn, bro, you are looking good. I don't want to show you the rest of my body because it's not as tight as yours, but thank you for being here, brother. Super excited to have you. Welcome, my friend.
Mikey, my dude, I really appreciate you, man. I can sense the passion that you have just doing these conversations. So, man, it is an honor to be here, and I really look forward to this conversation
Absolutely.
together.
Thanks, man. We already got people watching too. That means they already realize that you're a sexy human being too.
I love this.
Well,
NBA is your.
before we get to the formal intros, a little housekeeping sign on Mikey G's and midlifes. I say this every time. My co-founder Maddie is still alive. He's working his ass off trying to re-put his life together. With some real estate, and he's working really, really hard, 10 days on, a couple days off. But you should be excited about this, how this whole journey started, us playing video games and having 0 people watching us and talking to bots and Twitch is coming back. We're going to do Midlife Mondays. We're most likely going to play Diablo 4, and we're going to use that time as literally an AMA. You can come on, chill with us, ask us anything. It's going to be super informal as we continue to push our brand forward. So that's where Maddie is. As far as the rest of the week, we got playfix.io on my official Plague Space Fireside Founders Chat Friday afternoon. And then Sunday, I am super jazzed. And Leon, we'll have to talk about this after. This is one of the things that frustrates me about Web3. This guy, Grant, has a company called Metaverse Merchants. He
Okay.
has barrels to the tune of 20,000 gallons worth of high-end premium Irish whiskey from the
Uh-huh.
place that bottled the most expensive Irish whiskey bottle in the world. It sold for $3.5 million. Because he decided to mint where the mint meta was free, or if you tried to mint for over 0.08, no one gave him time of day. But if you actually break down the financials, you're literally getting 6 bottles of this for $800. You have power on how to blend your own whiskey and age it in different barrels, but he couldn't sell any. So I have made it a mission to make sure I spread this guy's love because the value prop is insane. So Sunday, we're doing a live whiskey tasting with the distillers and product experts around the space. So that's going to be banger. You all better come by for that. That's going to be live 1 p.m. PST on Sunday. So those are the updates here. And how we always roll into the podcast here, people, is the nice little formal introduction. We're going to keep it short here. But Leon, and one of the things that really resonated with me when we had our intro call is he loves community. And I just fucking love community too. It gets me excited. And he built a Web2 community to over 1 million people, which is insane, right? I'm sitting at what, 11,500 followers, and I'm struggling to get 100 more. So to build 1 million is pretty damn impressive. And since then, he's built an incredible Web3 brand, helped out creators, worked with really big IPs such as Pixelmon, and is continuing to grow and has built a really good brand about him, because I've heard about you loosely, man, and everyone said amazing things about you. So really excited to have you, man. Welcome formally to the show. Did I do you justice? Is there anything else you want to add?
You threw me so many flowers, man. I'm not used to this. I really appreciate it. Regarding the whiskey story, man, I think I'm pretty sure who is it you are talking about. A fellow
Yes.
friend of ours. It was actually the person who put us in touch together. A wink, wink. If, if this is the blink
Nice.
twice, if this
Nice.
is the person that we're
Okay. Yeah,
talking
I think
about.
so.
I love this. No, no, man. You hit it on the nail.
Oh,
I
wait,
do
no,
have.
it actually, hold on. It actually isn't. It's a different person who's just as good. I
Okay.
know who you're talking about now. But yes, he's incredible too.
Well, it seems like you have a very rich network of a lot of smart people, man.
I do. I do.
I'm
I
glad
do.
to be part of it. But hey, man, no, you did do me justice, and I know you got some questions regarding kind of the past, the present, and the future, and I'm looking forward to touch on those, man.
Yeah, man. So we are going to go through this magical journey. I love this format. I think it really opens up a chance for you to really reveal who you are. And now, at any moment you feel uncomfortable, I'm digging too much, we can just move on. Feel free to just tell me to shut up. I'm being a crazy redheaded ginger bearded man. That is fine. But
No,
here's how we do it, man. Famous midlife crisis question. It's been famous since day one for me. I know we're going to get fame here in the future. But how did you get to the seat you're sitting in today, my man? Please give me episode 1, 2, and 3. To reiterate for the audience, episode 1 is your childhood influences, stories, memories that helped mold the mindset that you have today. Episode 2 is your professional career, building that following of a million people community. What are the skills, success, failures you learned there? And then 3, your Web3 journey and beyond. Think about each episode about a half hour. If we're really vibing out, it might go a little over. And then at the end, I have one very softball question for you. But again, like we talked in the beginning, feel free to shoot questions back at me as we go on this magical journey. Cannot wait, my man. Let's start with episode 1.
of course, man. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate that, Mikey. I would say episode 1, man. A good way to describe me, early young Leon, is the quieter guy in the classroom. I wouldn't say I
Yeah.
was ever the popular kid, the guy who attracts the attention, the funny kid in the classroom. I actually, funny enough, was always for most of my life the guy that would sit in the back of the classroom, horrible student. And this was actually the chapter of my life through which I met my current business partner, Crypto
Mm,
Kermit, a very big content creator today in the Web3 space.
mm-hmm.
Our history together dates back since we were in middle school. Both
Right.
of us sitting in the back of the class,
So
horrible
cool.
students, incredible. And it's funny how life has a twist where all of a sudden we reconnect a decade after, and we both found ourselves in Web3 and we embark on a journey together.
Yeah.
But you can think of me as the quieter guy, never really popular, never really had my first girlfriend before I was 18. Like, think of that. And
Till
in
when?
terms of 18, bro,
Well, that's impressive. I mean, I thought I was doing
is
a
that good
bad.
or bad?
I thought I was doing a bad job. I think I had 1 or 2 in high school, but you got me beat, man. You
Good
got
for
me
you,
beat.
man. Good
No,
for
but
you,
that
man.
goes to prove you're not lying, man. You were sitting in the back of the class and you weren't about it, which is totally fine. And it's very interesting already. We have an interesting dynamic and something to talk about as we go forward. You couldn't be more opposite of that now. You're in the public eye and you're creating community. Like, how ironic is that, right?
Dude, that was all training, man. That was all training. Even if you want to dive a little bit deeper into the relationships and the girls, there was a lot of practice, dude. Like, I had to study game. It was never natural for me. I was never a good flirter. I was never good at, the I grew up with a younger brother. He's actually sitting on the other side of the office, on the office next door. And I
Nice.
grew up next to a younger brother, much just men in my life,
Yeah.
and I had to work on my game, bro. I had to learn how to flirt.
Right. Right.
Something that really shaped my early childhood and is an important pillar of my character today is I actually grew up for most of my life without seeing my father.
Mm,
From a very young age, for context, I grew up in Lebanon,
okay.
beautiful country, incredibly rich in culture, sadly, non functioning economy.
Right.
So from a very young age, my father would travel abroad. He was spending his days in Africa building power
Um,
plants. He was an engineer. He was working as a project manager building power plants in Africa. And I would see him most likely, if I recall correctly, 1 week out of 3 months. So that was the time he had to come see his family. So for most of my life, man, I remember every single time he came back, and before he left, he would look at me, the older son of the family, and he would tell me, "You're the man now." So for most of my life, I grew up with that responsibility on my shoulder,
right.
which I consider a blessing.
Yeah.
And this experience, man, taught me something very important. I think a big reason why a lot of the people that love to consume my content, that appreciate what I do, is because I
Mhm.
show the hard work that comes with it. I'm
Yes,
here flexing my late night hours, my early morning, my busy schedule, when everyone else has the idea that what they should be flexing is the wealth, is the women, is the cars.
love
But
it.
for me, it is the lifestyle of becoming someone worthy that I am flexing.
Yeah, yeah. And it's
And where
so
I,
so real quick, man. You said a couple really interesting things
of
already.
course,
Um, so one, totally agree with you. It is, you hear this a bajillion times, right? And this is what I love about this show. I'm getting your version of the universal principles we all know, but for some odd reason, it doesn't resonate with a lot of people. And I think, but hearing your story, someone that came from you or had a father situation, like you just said, maybe the light bulb does go off. And the one principle that you just talked about really was enjoying the hard work, not understanding that the grind is part of it, and
absolutely.
enjoying the journey. Right? We hear that time and time again on this podcast. The other thing,
I mean, I wouldn't say, sorry, Mikey, to hop on. I wouldn't say enjoying the journey, man. I wouldn't say
okay,
enjoying the
okay,
journey.
I
I
liked
would
it.
say, man, I would say you need to have a fire so strong under your ass that you just need to get up and get shit done.
Yes,
Honestly, when my father was living abroad, away from my mother, his beloved wife, from his kids, in Africa, he was not in the US, he was not in Europe, he was not in a beautiful country. He did this, man, out of necessity. He had to provide to his family. And this was a sacrifice.
yes,
Business, entrepreneurship, becoming someone worthy, building a business that is profitable is a huge sacrifice. Long
yes,
days, long nights. You're not going to resonate with your friends anymore. Your childhood friends, you're going to have to say goodbye. Dude, I was, for most of the bear market, and I know we're taking a tangent here, but for most of the bear market, and this is not a story that I share, I was sharing a bed next to my younger brother sitting on the other side
yeah,
because I would use any profit that was came in so I can accumulate and reinvest in the business.
right,
This is sacrifice, man.
yeah,
When everyone
yeah,
in my engineering class that graduated, they all had started buying their first home. They had their wife, they had their dog. I was sitting here, bro, 25-year-old youngster next to my brother.
yeah,
So I would say, man, you need a fire so strong. Yes, the goal is how do you learn? Enjoyment comes from purpose. Once you're fulfilled by what you do, enjoyment comes from that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you need something bigger, man. You need to be working towards, you need to have a tolerance to sacrifice that is so freaking high
hmm,
that it is almost irrational for anyone to logically be like, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. Like genuinely.
right. And so I hear what you're saying, and I think it's interesting because there's many. I've had very successful entrepreneurs on here saying that being an entrepreneur is not the driver. I
Mhm.
I interpret it in the way it works for me because how you described it could work for somebody, right?
Mhm.
How it works for me is when, I have a 9-month-old son, I have a
Love that.
full-time job, and I'm building this podcast company, right? I do it because, as you said in the beginning, I absolutely love it. There's like a fire inside of me, which is passion. So when it drives me to, I can't tell you, man, 50% of these podcasts right before, even 15 minutes before, I'm like, son of a bitch, this is the last thing I want to do right now. I just want to sit down. My
Yes.
head hurts. But time and time again, 100% of the times, just like going to the gym, don't want to do it. But
Yes.
after it's over, you're like, thank God I did that, right? So my question is, does your fire come from you're just fascinated by being an entrepreneur? Or is it you're so passionate about X, Y, and Z? I'm interested what created that fire. Because it's hard to find, man. It's
It
hard to
is
find.
it is very hard to find, man. It is very hard to find. I would say, man, it's it's one of these things where you start out of passion because the dream of entrepreneurship is what sells you into the process, but then it is discipline that keeps you on track.
Okay. I
The
like that.
dream puts you on the road. It is discipline that keeps you on track. It keeps
Right.
you on the road.
Right.
And Going back to the childhood, I would say the understanding of hard work coupled with my exposure early on into my life to sports taught me that progress is a slow moving process.
Right.
I think here the problem in Web3 is that oftentimes we're a bit too desensitized to the quick money. We see everyone making 0 to million in two good flips, and all of a sudden we assume that this is the standard. But in truth, it is not. It is long days of grind and work. And the worst thing you can become, honestly, is just a guy that was able to make money on a quick pump,
Right.
because you do not have the character. You do not have the character of someone that generates money, that knows how to manage money.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
would say, man, the obviously I have still today, man, and family is something that keeps coming up, but for for most of my parents' life, they put money aside in the bank so they could save for retirement.
Hmm.
My father worked pretty much 2 decades in Africa and saved enough money so he could retire one day.
Right.
Never invested in a single stock. Never, not the entrepreneur. My parents were never entrepreneurial. They were very traditional people, just like a lot of people listening to us. The parents of a lot of people.
Right.
In 2021, the banks in Lebanon collapsed,
Hmm. Hmm.
and everyone who had any dollar in the bank lost everything. My parents still today are locked out of their money. And this is where, as the child, as the older son, I need to step up and I need
Right.
to be the one providing. And I
Right.
would say, bro, this is where, Mikey, my short term fire, that's where it
Yes.
comes from.
See, and I love that because we've since now yet boiled that down, right? And that is absolutely a fire. What's interesting is it affects people in such a different way because, to your point, when I was really young, I was about 10 years old. My parents got divorced,
Hmm.
right? Devastated
Hmm.
me, right? And I remember
That's
being
tough.
young. Yeah, that sucks, man. And I remember being very young, and my sister was young. And of course, I had to grow up a little quicker than maybe I wanted to with like getting myself ready for school and all of these different things, right? But how I handled it was uh, I didn't know at the time, but anger, frustration, and I internalized a
Mm.
lot of this. So it actually was the opposite for me. Not until, and this is crazy, man, 32 years later, did I have this aha moment and went through some really bad mental stuff where this
Mm.
pent up stuff just really affected me, right? So the fact that similar situations happened in the sense that like parents weren't there at a younger age and you took it that way, and I think
Mm.
the narrative is different, whereas like mine I perceived more as trauma and I dealt with it that way, whereas you were perceiving my dad is making a sacrifice to make my life better, and that message resonates obviously very differently.
Hmm.
But I just wanted to bring that up because I went through a similar situation. It's just so interesting to hear how minds react to these things, especially at a younger age, right?
At what age did you realize that you had carried a lot of baggage from that episode of your life?
So my OGs have heard this. I don't know how much detail I've actually gone into, but one of the other things that drive me. I love what we're doing right now. I'm learning and going to school every time I do this. But two, one of my ultimate things too is mental health, right?
Mm.
And so I went through a major depressive order in my late 30s, and when you go through something like that, you try to you're second to second at times, and you're
Mm.
trying to figure out why your brain is broken, right? And what finally eventually came out was there was really three aspects that were doing this. It was incredibly unhealthy to begin with. I was drinking copious amounts of alcohol because I was running advertising for $1 billion brand, and I was in LA filming commercials, and I was living that advertising Don Draper
Mm.
lifestyle, right? So listen, man, when someone tells you, hey, do you want to go to the most expensive steak restaurant in LA and drink a $3,000 bottle of wine? What are you going to say? No, that sounds horrible. I'm
Mhm.
going to do all of that, and I'm going to do it as much as I can. So I was going through that. Two, back to your point, that the negative or the speak when you're at a young age makes such an impact, right? And so there was a lot of narrative of how we didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I had that going. And then three, my parents divorced, right? I had bottled that up all for so long and I didn't realize it because it was so down in heart. I just thought I was fine, right? And I would have been probably mildly depressed for a long time. And life events happen and it triggers it and it all falls apart. And my life event was I
Mm.
bought an insanely expensive brand new townhome in the San Francisco Bay Area. Not cheap, right? And something in my mind took all of these things inherently in me that I didn't know about. And I literally woke up one morning and felt like I could puke all over my room. Didn't know what was going on. Complete, just like
Wow.
one day, one day I went to bed and I felt like my normal self. The next day I woke up violently ready to vomit all over. Couldn't tell you what was wrong.
Oof.
And then I went through 8 months of hell. Uh, but it was the best thing that ever happened, right?
How
That,
long did that happen after you bought the home?
uh,
Was it instant?
dude, it was like days,
Wow. So it
days,
it,
right?
it just it was instant. It didn't creep up on you.
It was like a form of PTSD, man.
Dude, that's crazy. I mean, maybe probably you were again. There's this. Who was it? Armstrong, I believe. He went to the moon and he came back and he became an alcoholic.
Right.
Um, Someone else, a very famous boxer, for his whole life, his whole journey, his whole goal was how do I become? I'm going to become world champion. Became world champion. Fell into alcoholism. So I think probably for you, what drove you and what got you to this is me just assuming what got you, what was driving you was getting that house. And once you got there, once you got to the destination, all of a sudden you realize like what left is there.
Yeah. So you know what? That's a way to interpret it. But where I think my mind went, and the reason I bring this up is my other inherent goal is to raise awareness about mental health. I don't think it's talked enough about, especially in the male persona of what you're supposed to be doing, right? If you're hearing this right now and you're feeling any sorts of messed upness, go get help, go talk to people. Like I just want to continue to reiterate that message, right? And tell my story and hopefully it can help somebody. And I did that when I was an original hate beast mod. I think I told you that, and that went to 1 million people in the Discord server. And I did a couple campaigns around mental health, and I had hundreds of DMs, man. Like, changed my life. Thank you for telling the story. Like, that shit. That's why I do what I do, right? But to your point, it wasn't that. You know what it was? It was I had because I wasn't even, yes, I was nervous about the house because it's a lot. It's a lot of pressure. Financial pressure in my mind is probably the biggest pressure that you can put on yourself, right? Um, Not many other things relate to that. But I feel like what happened was those were catalysts, but what really happened was I did such an amazing job, and this is why the brain is so good. I did such an amazing job harvesting all these emotions deep down inside that I just kind of went on. I kind of plodded along life. Somehow had like a really successful career. I was always been a smart guy, but I never felt like um, I was really kind of like making my own decisions, thinking very deeply. I was just like this surface level guy because I think my brain had taught myself such a good job of just doing that, right? And then when all of these things that are inherently in my brain that worry me collide, boom, it explodes. But getting out of that, I have never like it's there's a reason why people say like come to Jesus moment or I have
Mm,
found faith or religion or born again, right? Because it is a religious experience. If you go through
mm,
that and then you look back, it totally realigns, resets your entire perspective. It literally was like I was born again and I was able to piece all these things together to see like this is why the way I was. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a beautiful thing, but it's horrific at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So amazing conversation. We're just in episode one. One thing that I want to touch on too is you mentioned your dad, right?
Mm.
You mentioned that you were an introvert. Um, your what was the impact on maybe your mother, your brother, anything else there relationship wise, or things that you were really passionate about that kind of helped you became an engineer, right? Was that because of your
I
dad? Like
was.
any other things you want to touch on there in the childhood, and then we can move on to episode two.
I would say, man, if there's something I'm very lucky at, is that I was born in a family that is emotionally stable. My
Mm,
mother and father both are very emotionally stable, loving relationship, loving marriage. Obviously, that every marriage has its problems, its ups and downs, difficult
right,
moments, but there was never. I can't sit here and say emotional trauma is something that built my character. I'm
right,
not one of these. I don't
right,
have that narrative. So that is something I'm incredibly blessed for. When
right.
I share that story, when I'm on date nights, I like to talk about my childhood. I like to share a little bit of these things because you get to know people
Yeah,
quite faster. And always ask if check for daddy issues. That's very important, by the way. Just pro tip for my bros out there.
right, right.
Uh, and oftentimes when I say that, people look at me like, "Holy fuck, really? Like you actually had a this was your childhood?" And yeah, man, this was the it was all of this led to me at the age of 18 immigrating to Canada
Okay,
to start a life anew.
yeah.
I
So
for most of my
real
life,
quick, before we
go
go
ahead,
there, I don't want to cut you off because
go
we're
ahead.
going into 18. Um, you said um, two things, and I think that this is literally a video clip. Like I said, when we cut this content up, I don't think people say enough what you just said. Uh, an emotionally stable home growing up is a massive advantage, man.
Yeah.
With especially this day and age with just the craziness going on all over the world, right? Like I'm glad that you understand and appreciate that, whether probably looking back now, but I just didn't want to lose that because I think that's a very, very important point. And I, back to my childhood, I did that by going to my best friend's house, who I literally call my second parents,
Mm,
because it was emotionally stable. And
mm,
when you're 9, 10 years old, you don't know that's what you're seeking, but you do it because it feels good, right?
yes.
And so
Beautiful.
that is a massive point. And then three, before you get to 18, you drop this nugget in the beginning, man, but you cannot leave this, which is another consistent message you hear on these shows. You have to practice hard work over a consistent period of time. And you did that with dating. So, for all of the people that are working hard at dating, give me some pro tips, man, because I am so far removed from that. I married my wife from like, you know, 20 years at this point. I couldn't even tell you about it. Any thoughts? Because you have to
Dude.
put work to be good at anything. I'm interested in your dating work and what that looks like. I just think that's a fascinating topic.
That is hilarious. We're getting there, bro. And I couldn't love it anymore, bro. This is fantastic because this is one of these areas of my life that I generally have worked a lot on
Right.
and never spoken about. Like, never brought this up.
Give it to me, man.
Dude, I will, like, just to depict you a picture. Until the age of probably 22, 23, dude, there was, especially after COVID, bro, there was I would, if you could draw a point on my in my life, that was probably one of the lower points. Walking on the street and having a pretty woman walk by me
Uh-huh.
gave me anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah.
It gave me anxiety. You know why?
Why?
Jordan Belfort, Jordan Peterson, sorry, Jordan Peterson says it beautifully. Beauty is intimidating because it is a reflection of what you are not. And
That's a good
whenever I
point.
would see a beautiful woman, I felt, whether it was truth or it was just a feeling, that I was not good enough
Right.
for that
Right.
person.
Which is a
And
natural
that
feeling.
100%. And that by itself and gave me it just just a rush of negative emotions that would come
Right.
up.
Right.
What really helped, man, I will say, like, just getting into the community of game, getting into the community of game, and there's a group of people. What is most personal is most universal. If you feel insecure about yourself, trust me, it is, most people feel that way.
Hmm.
There's a big group of people, man, on the internet, other local communities that are on the same journey as you.
Right.
Get into those communities, man. Have chats, learn. There's a lot of good material out there. And if there's one thing I'm going to say, man, is just approach the girl. Approach the girl. The first approach is going to be the hardest. The second
Yeah.
is going to be even a bit less hard. But Jude, the thing why this is important is it breaks your limiting belief
Yes.
that you have no control.
Yeah.
The moment you know that you have control over something means that it strips away the anxiety.
Yep.
Same thing with business. I know today, if I want more leads, I know how to turn the valve. I know where to bring those. I do not
Hmm.
have financial anxiety with how the business is going today at this stage of the business growth because I know that where I can get business.
Right. Right.
The moment you are powerless and the moment you are waiting to be picked versus picking is the moment you are in a position of weakness, and
Hmm.
weakness creates anxiety. So
Yes.
for you, and we're getting deep right here, learning how to actually be able to introduce yourself, shaking hands, taking the Instagram or the phone number is a freaking superpower. Is a
Yes.
superpower because you can use that anytime, anywhere of the day, whether it's sliding in that connections DM, whether it's talking to that person at the conference, or whether it's talking to your future wife.
Yeah.
It is a superpower tool, and it is a muscle that you have to practice.
Right.
It
No,
really
I
is.
love it. And to your point too, whether it be business or personal relationships, uh, but one thing that I pulled from what you just said, and I think it's related to Web3 and the internet in general, is learning how to introduce yourself. That's so important in so many aspects of life. But what also is not talked about enough is uh, there is so much, even in this space, copy pasta. You read books. This is how you should introduce yourself. These are the pro tips, right? Everyone wants a quick fix, a pro tip on how to do X, Y, and Z. When the real answer is be yourself. Because the more unique you are and the more genuine you are, that's what's going to resonate. So, to your point, it's just doing it, but then make sure that you're not trying to be somebody else that you're not, right? And you
Can I add
see
on
that.
that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you said be yourself, which I agree. However, I have a caveat to that.
Oh, I like it.
There's a short movie on YouTube. It's called The Pickup Artist. It's kind of just in a nutshell. It's a 20-minute short movie. It depicts what is it that leads men to become pickup artists. It's a pretty deep
Uh-huh.
story.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, at the very beginning, first 5 minutes of the movie, there was the student who was speaking on the phone from the washroom of the club with the pickup coach that was coaching him through how to overcome his anxiety and actually go up there and do what needs to be done.
Right.
And the student looks on the phone, looks at himself in the mirror, and is like, just be yourself, just be yourself.
Right.
The dating coach tells him, be your best self.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
So come in with, you're going to give a handshake, give your
Yeah.
best handshake. You're going
Yes.
to
Got
introduce
it.
yourself, come in with confidence. You're going to
Yes.
walk in with standing up, roll your shoulders back, be
Love
the
it.
best version of yourself.
Yeah. No, no, I think that's really good. And I think that's a great version of yes and right there, right? You just yes and me, and I think that's fantastic. Um, that was very insightful, and I'm glad that we shared that. I had another thought. I told you I'd screw up this podcast before you. I lost it, man. Like I
Let's,
told you, I drank a lot of alcohol in my late 20s and early 30s, so that happens from time to time. But let's go. Let's transition into 18. You're moving to Canada, right? We're going to
yeah.
start rolling into episode 2. Uh, and take us on that journey, man. Fascinating, amazing conversation already. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I mean, you are making the conversation conductive, man. You're the cook,
Excellent.
and we're together. We're cooking a nice dish.
Yeah, Yeah, we are. Well, I already got feedback that the comments are coming in. The dishes are being cooked and
That's,
people are enjoying it.
that's beautiful. I'm happy to hear this. When it comes to post 18, at the age of 18, I immigrated to Canada to pursue studies in engineering. Funny enough, the only faculty with the only program that I had applied to, I was rejected from. So that's another side story that I can share with you. But I was literally rejected out of all my options, and
Mm-hmm.
I only had one option left, which is just getting there and figuring it out on the ground.
Right.
Ended up making it into my engineering school. First year freshman, I was living in dorms in the university dorm, 400 students all under the same roof.
Right.
And I didn't speak English back then. I grew up
Mm-hmm.
speaking French and Arabic.
Okay.
And I remember I was room 302.
Right.
And in room 301, there was this other immigrant that came with me. His name was Ernest from Hong Kong.
Okay.
And both of us, first time in Canada, no friends, nothing, just thrown into the wild. I remember because of our resemblance in terms of our story, we built a strong bond together, Ernest and I. One day, I was sitting in the park with him outside of the campus, and I look at him and I'm like, "Bro, Ernest, I'm honestly tired of not being able to express myself well in English. How long do you think it's going to take me to actually become as good as you?" He had private education in Hong Kong. They have strong British schools. So he told me, he was like, "Dude, just keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna get there probably in around 2 months. You're gonna be able to get comfortable in speaking with people."
Right.
All that to illustrate, man, I had to learn and learn how to rebuild my circle of friends, and number two, learn how to express myself in a new language
Mm-hmm.
from scratch.
Yeah.
And I might be getting ahead of myself right now, but when you learn a language a little bit later in your life, you tend to pick up bad habits
Yeah.
like filler words. You breathe wrong when you're speaking. Your sentences are short because of your breathing. And funny enough, it was a couple years after, when I started making YouTube videos about fitness,
Right.
that I started catching on that, hey, like my delivery is actually not as good as I would like it to be. And this prompted me to start working on my public speaking skills, to start paying closer attention to how I communicate, how I come off, and how people receive the message that I'm trying to communicate with them.
Yeah.
So around 2017, 2018, I started making YouTube content. If you are to type right now on YouTube, jump rope mentor, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
see 18, 19-year-old Leon
I
teaching
love it.
people how to
How to
teaching
jump
people
rope.
how to jump rope, man. Literally, that was my passion. I genuinely thought back then that I was going to make a career for myself being a fitness coach. Like that was the reality, and I was convinced about it.
Yeah.
And here I am in the land of magic internet money and anime PFP.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Isn't it
the life
wild
that I'm
how
living.
life happens? But what
It's
so
incredible.
so what you say is really interesting. The insight that I pull from what you just said, and you've actually mentioned it a couple of times, is to your point, that's got to be terrifying. Going to college, moving to a new place, not knowing the language. You're talking to people saying, what is it going to take? But even for the jump rope and the YouTube, there's a very simple principle. And Nike has created the best slogan out of it, which
Hmm.
is just do it, right?
Yes.
And that is, it's amazing to me how hard that is for just people to do, right? And I think it's maybe a little bit because our way our brains are wired to not take risk or be safe,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
What are your thoughts around that mantra? Do you agree with what I just said? Do you have anything to add there on how you maybe uh, get yourself to just do it, right?
I mean, yeah, very good question, by the way, Mikey. I appreciate you going there.
Yeah.
Pressure can either make diamonds or it can make dust.
Mm,
And I would say it's your environment has a very big impact on what the outcome ends up being. Do you get toast and become dust and fall and just get crushed by the stress that life throws at you, or do you become something that is deemed worthy?
Right.
And I would say, man, one thing that really helped me being in that part of my life where I was reinventing myself, making friends, learning the language, was kicking off my self development journey. It was all started with the book The Secret, and the second book that I read that I still have my notes until today, 17 pages of notes. How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, great, great book. If you haven't read it, audience, you better read it immediately.
What a book.
Yeah.
What a book. And now that you're on the other side, that you've read it and you know the concepts, it sounds obvious. Like, yes, be more interested than think that you're interesting. There was one sentence of the book that resonated the most, and I still quote it today. To be interesting, be interested.
Yeah.
To be interesting, be interested. Don't talk
Mm-hmm.
about yourself, talk about other people.
Yeah.
Everyone loves to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
So that was a really big guiding principle. I was literally applying the principles by the book as I was navigating my new life, getting to know people, getting to meet friends. And I will say, it was, if there was one manuscript that I can give credit to for where I am today, it was How to Win Friends and Influence People,
Yeah.
by far.
And I would say you just already said a couple of fascinating things too, and I really like what you said was, um, how do you just do it? There's a couple of things that I heard that help benefit you, which is having a support network,
Yes.
surrounding yourself with the right people, and then going out. And I don't think people talk about this enough either, right? Is putting in the work to do the research. You don't even have to do anything first, but like just be interested in learning
Be a
uh,
student.
and be a student, right? Because I like one of my favorite things, and I've kind of taken the mantra for myself. I don't know the exact words he was like Gary V. You either love him or hate him. He's a little bit abrasive, but he says a lot of really good things. And one of the things is, and you hear this all the time, I'm not good at anything.
Hmm.
And my answer to you is, well, you haven't tried enough things, right?
Yep.
There's no one in this world that isn't good at something. You're just either too lazy or not interested in learning or just don't
Hmm.
have the motivation to go try new things, or you're scared, right? Fear is a thing and it's fine. And
Yep.
it's not like those people are bad, but that is the biggest encouragement, right? Like it right here, right? I ended up in this like intimate Joe Rogan-esque podcast by starting to stream video games, right?
Yep.
Like
I
how the
love
hell
that.
did we get here? But what I learned in the reps that I was building over time was talking to the camera with my buddy with nobody in chat. So you know how difficult it is to have a 3-hour video game podcast and create conversation out of nothing? That's way more difficult than talking to a super interesting person like yourself,
Yeah,
right?
I appreciate that.
And those reps, little did I know, because we have this all the time. And I love your thought process on this, and then we can get more deep into two. But I would love your thought process on this. This happens to me often.
Mm.
So this moment in time, right when I started my video game stream, this 2021, end of 2021, going into 2022, hadn't even been a hate beast mod yet, and I spend now a year and a half later, I'm looking back, and I'm like, I haven't made any money, but I've talked to a collective cohort of founders that have millions of followers. I only have 15,000 followers. Like, what the hell did I do? I didn't do anything. And then I look back and I'm like, holy shit, like I actually accomplished a lot, right? And I constantly like look back and say, I didn't do anything. Uh, but in reality, I've done a lot. And this year in particular, like all of these things are starting to click. Do you find yourself in similar patterns, or how do you kind of look back and self-evaluate what's going on? Because I tend to immediately go to the negative and like
Yeah.
I feel like I've done nothing, right?
Yeah.
I love your thoughts on that.
I mean, it is a high achiever syndrome that you always feel like you're not enough. I can see some of the comments here is like people like Leon is a goat. Leon has hacked the Web3 space, and I'm sitting here in my position, and I'm like, bro, I've like haven't done much, or
Right.
I'm definitely not satisfied with where I've gotten.
Right.
So I think, man, like this is forever going to be a syndrome that we
Yeah.
are going to have to live with.
Yeah.
I think where it becomes important is dissecting between the noise versus the signal. When
Mhm.
I built Unfungible today to a multi six figure per month agency off a YouTube channel, the backbone of the business is a YouTube channel with 3,000 followers. Back then, when it had started and the revenue had yet to come in, it, it's easy to look back to look at it and be like, I'm not doing enough, or it's not working, I'm not good enough. But then the feedback is the business that is coming in. It is the leads that are knocking at the door. It is the sales calls that are being booked. So I would say this is where it's important that to identify what is the real pulse that gives you a good estimate of what is the health of the endeavor you're on. For
Right.
you, Mikey, if your goal is to become the Web3 Joe Rogan, that pulse would be community sentiment. Are people actually enjoying your conversations? And community growth. Is it growing enough so it can become eventually self-sustaining?
Yeah.
And as long as you have a close pulse over this and just let go of all the noise around, I think that's important. That's
100%. And I find myself doing that time and time again
yeah.
because out of, I would say, yeah, there's noise across the internet. This whole Web3 ecosystem in general is very noisy, right? And it's very difficult because 90% of the stuff you see is
Yeah.
bullshit. And that is the internet in general, really. Like you're just, I always say it's the Instagram mentality, right? You see these beautiful pictures, but that is a split second of somebody's life.
Yeah.
They're not
Agree.
taking pictures of videos of the horrible arguments that they just had the night before, or a divorce they just went through, or some tragic event, right? And so that's the product of the internet in
Agree.
general. Crypto Twitter is no different, might be even a little more aggressive than other
Hmm.
spaces, right? Absolutely. All right, man. So let's move forward on episode 2. So beautiful conversation about you learning your language. Um, let's talk about, and we can get the cliff notes because I really want to talk about the Web3 too. And we are already, believe it or not, 48 minutes in. I feel like we've been talking for 5 minutes,
Oh wow.
and I want to be cognizant of
Insane.
your time. So the Web 2 kind of journey, I'm really interested in this building this community to 1 million followers.
Hmm.
Take us through that, and in particular, through the lens of wins and losses,
Hmm.
pains and growth. I'm
Of
really
course.
interested in that.
Of course. No, very good point. And generally, I typically speak from experience. And
Mhm.
one thing I will say that period of my life is filled with learning lessons that could be very valuable for some of the people listening, and including yourself, Mikey. Uh, back in back in 2017, I started producing content on Instagram. I was repackaging some of the content I would learn from the courses that I was attending at university, and I was repackaging that information as chunks of consumable Instagram posts. And very quickly, it turns out that what I thought was interesting and I was publishing, the internet thought the same. And very quickly was able to grow Worldwide Engineering, which was the name of the media brand, to my first 10K. Very quickly after I hit my first 100K, I think at our peak we were growing 7,000 followers per day. Very quickly hit 300K right after that, then 500. And a lot of lessons that I learned, some the good way, some the hard way. I
Yes.
would say the first lesson that I learned that was positive reinforcement is that volume trumps quality.
Mm.
Here's what I mean. In the age of algorithms, in the age where Twitter is going to rank the best performing feed and the post in the eyes of your community, volume, giving more volume to the algorithm gives it more data that it can use to actually assess what is high quality or not. Funny enough, even today, my top performing posts on X are not the ones I thought were highest quality. I've spent hours writing big threads and analyzing why Doodle is 123. These never, literally 600 impressions
Right.
versus other types of posts. So volume gives you more data to identify what does your community want and
Yeah.
what does the algorithm deem as high quality.
I love it. That's a great insight.
100%.
Yeah.
And I very quickly learned, and because of that, I was able to catch the trend when Instagram was transitioning from being a picture first consumption platform to a video consumption platform.
Yeah.
There was that pivot moment. And because I was posting so often, I was able to all of a sudden have enough data to see, oh, okay, so my videos are performing better. Let me double down on videos. And today it's only videos that we do, no pictures at all.
Right.
And I believe at our peak, we were posting like 6 times per day. Imagine, like 6 times per day, just pumping out content. That's all I was doing.
Right.
In 2020, in 2020, I most likely had the most humbling episode of my entrepreneurial career.
Oh, I like this. Getting me excited.
Give me. I had the genius idea of utilizing this big audience that I had and monetizing it.
Hmm.
I thought it was time. I did not want to follow the traditional media model where I was selling advertisers to advertise on my page. That was a typical traditional business model that most of the businesses in my category were following. And some people were making thousands of dollars per week just doing
Right.
that. I was like, no, I'm building something better. I'm building something branded and I want to launch my own product. So what I did is for a full 7 days, I stopped posting any of the traditional content people were used to seeing. No more news, no more educational content. And instead, what I did is I archived all my posts and then I started creating a timer. So 7 days before launch, there were 7. 6 days before launch, 6, like an animated futuristic
Right.
6. 5, 4.
Yeah.
By day 3, people were starting to speculate. I was starting to get DMs on my personal account because it was connected. People were like, Leon, like, yo, what's going on, bro? What are you dropping? What's happening? In the comment sections of these posts, people were like, yo, they're about to drop a university. This is going to be a software product for engineers. 2, 1, I dropped the post of the announcement. And from the first 30 seconds, because we had so many, like I think we were at like 700,000 people, so the feedback was instant.
Right.
I could instantly tell that this had completely missed the mark.
Ooh,
Completely.
they were not excited that you're trying to
Dude.
monetize them, right?
Bro, what people thought was going to be an innovative product, a software, a digital university about engineering,
Right.
turned out to be a merch collection for my community.
Oh, I was gonna even say book of the month club.
Dude,
No, a merch collection. I mean, dude, that's a lot of
even your
anticipation
reaction,
for a
dude.
t-shirt with a logo, bro. Oh man. I could have. I mean, listen, I'm a brand marketing guy.
You're
For 15
disappointed.
plus years, I could have told you, bro. That's probably not gonna go over great.
Even 4 years after, man, it's so funny that you're disappointed that this happened,
Yeah,
bro.
that's
That
crazy,
was
man. But I appreciate that too. And so what is the lesson learned there, man? I mean, because I think that's super important and is, my head goes to you're not listening to your true customer and
no.
what they want, but
I
maybe
didn't
you
know.
got it different.
I didn't know what they wanted. I didn't know, or I thought I knew better. I
Right.
thought I knew better. I was trying to optimize for short-term revenue because obviously merch collection, local merchant, 3 days, slap the logo on a high-quality T-shirt, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I was thinking short term. I didn't understand my customer, and I do think by fundamentally the big problem was I overhyped it. Overhyping was the big problem, and I think this is something we see very often today in Web3. We've all
Mm,
seen our favorite founder overhyping himself out of relevance,
right.
and that was the lesson that I learned. Slow, steady grind of small business wins is a lot better than the big. Because when you're overhyped something, what you really are trying to do is to open up a new chapter in your business, in your career, in your journey. You're trying to skip a couple pages and open up a new journey where all of a sudden you gain relevance, you gain significance, or you gain a big bump in
Yeah.
financial opportunities, if you want to call
Right.
it that way.
Right. No, that makes total sense. So if you were to rewind that time, then, right, not do the drop, would you have uh, pitched your ideas, listened to the customers? So I actually have you heard of design thinking?
I think I have. I think I
So
have.
design thinking is a methodology that came out of Stanford. They
Okay.
actually have a school called the D School, but we'll
Mm,
play off B School, right, for design thinking. And IDEO is one of the more famous design thinking firms, and they are responsible for um, reinvigorating Dyson vacuum brand is like
mm,
their classic case study, right? Which was all design thinking is empathetically understanding your customer and their pain points and how do you solve those pain points. And there's a litany of way to get there, right? Creating quick prototypes, um, going into somebody's house if you're trying to solve how to make a better laundry detergent, right? You go into the house and watch people do their laundry, right? I actually worked for a solar startup in downtown San Francisco, and we were trying to figure out how to make our uh, pamphlets in our booth in Costco
mm.
more attractive, right? And so what I did literally for 2 weeks is I went and sat on the couch across from our kiosk and watched people and witnessed what they did as they went by.
Yes.
That's design thinking, right? Empathizing with your customer, and your customer can be anybody.
Design
Um,
thinking.
why I bring it up is I think that methodology is extremely impactful for understanding the needs and wants and desires. So in my mind, if I could rewind time, I would have used a series of emails, surveys, literally said, "Hey, Joe from the community, you cool chopping on a one-on-one chat? I'm tossing around a couple ideas. Can I get your feedback?" That's what I would have done. What do you have any thoughts on what you would have done differently?
A very good question, by the way. I appreciate the background,
Yeah.
Mikey. I would say what I did completely wrong is I tried to reinvent the wheel. And that is something I see
Mm,
very often here in Web3. I tried to reinvent the wheel. There was a
interesting.
written business blueprint for how brands like mine should be operating in the NFT or in the NFT space on Instagram
Right.
to build a profitable business. And that
Right.
was by selling paid advertisement to publishers. And at the scale of the audience that I had, could have been a passive couple $1,000s per week just off of paid advertisement. Instead, I thought I knew better and I tried to reinvent the wheel. I tried to go my own way and I tried to take a I would say I tried to take a buffalo and tried to make it run like a horse.
I love it. I love
It
it.
was different. They do different things. They have different horsepower. They have different strength levels. I was trying to make it run like a horse.
Yeah.
I was trying to take my what was a media brand. I was trying to make it look, seem, feel like a actual lifestyle brand.
Yeah.
Didn't that it was is not it. It was not it. So I would have gone back and actually monetized the traditional way, and it would have grown my um, the advertisement part of it. I agree with you regarding design thinking, and I think what is interesting about design thinking is you are observing customers as they interact with the product, and
Right.
you're not necessarily asking them what they would like.
Yes.
Because Henry Ford said it, if he had asked what people wanted, they would have said a faster horse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No one goes on Instagram, no one goes on X and is like, I would love to have paid ads on my feed. No
Yeah.
one does that.
Yeah.
But that is a thing that makes the overall platform better because it allows us to monetize. Therefore, we're investing in the actual product and in the staff. So we
Yeah.
all understand how that works.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the other famous examples they have. I love this story. It's like quick story. Um,
By
you
the way,
know,
Miki, I'm hearing you. I'm just gonna grab my charger from right here.
yeah, 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 no
You can go
problem.
on. Go on with the story.
Kids with that had to go into MRI machines in a really young age. That device is huge and terrifying, right? And the doctors noticed this, and they kept on watching kids, and they kept on observing them in an environment. And then they started doing little experiments like changing the lighting or adding music, and they ended up finally settling on, which worked like flying colors. They actually wrapped the entire MRI machine as a pirate ship, and so it looked like a huge toy in a
Ah,
playhouse, and it drastically decreased the anxiety of these kids. And it almost now turned into like this magical experience, right? That's a prime example of paying attention to the customer and feeling out what are their actual like physical reactions and what is going through their psyche and mentality. And it's just such a powerful, effective thing to do.
pirate ship MRI machine, dude. This is a beautiful story. I actually wrote it down.
Yeah. So, all right, man, amazing learning lessons there. Any other highlights or anything else that you're like, we're moving on to Web3 episode 3, but I need to share X about episode 2. And if not, that's totally cool. We'll move on.
I mean, something that really transitioning into the Web3 space, I would say my failed business opportunity at monetizing worldwide engineering led me down the rabbit hole of e commerce, especially
Okay.
direct response marketing. So it
Mm-hmm.
led me down the path of starting e commerce stores using my ability to build websites, create content, and actually took me down the rabbit hole of e commerce.
Right.
And that became the place. It took me a good 12 months to get a hold of it, but that became my first taste of actually making money online at a
Yeah.
scale that is sufficient to be close to supporting yourself. And that became one of the skill sets that allowed me to come into Web3. So transitioning into Web3 and understand influencer marketing, understand paid marketing, understand the importance of the copywriting, the messaging, the headline, the hook, the website, the conversion, the
Right.
hitting the right pain points. So I learned a lot during my direct response marketing journey or episode of my life.
And that is an awesome insight yet again. I'm really interested, top 2 or 3 skill sets from that direct marketing experience that you apply to Web3. And you don't have to have like a specific example. I'm more interested in, is it the monetization part? Is it understanding influencer marketing? Is it understanding creative in the hook? Like, what are those things from the direct response arena that you feel like you apply effectively today in Web3 and are a huge help?
Very good question. Very good question, Mikey. I would say the first important thing that I learned from that experience is so here, I'm just going to take this off. And now, there we go. We're good to go. The first of these experiences was the importance of identifying the pain points and suffer points that your customer has and
Mhm.
clearly hitting on those when trying to position yourself as a potential solution.
Right.
So, NFT founders, you know how it's incredibly hard to get the right information with the right product and find trusted partners for your NFT project. Well,
Yep.
this video is going to show you exactly how to do it.
Yep.
So, you're packaging all the pain points that your customer has and you're giving the solution. In my case, the solution is them consuming my piece of content.
Yes.
Number two is the importance of social proof. There is
Mhm.
this very dark practice that exists in the direct response world, is especially in dropshipping. In dropshipping, you are pretty much selling someone else's product and you're making a margin on that.
Right.
The most common practice is you find these products on other reselling platforms, oftentimes Alibaba or AliExpress. And
Mhm.
on AliExpress, there exists reviews for the actual product by real consumers, oftentimes in the Asian market.
Right.
What we do is in the direct response world is you literally there are tools on one click of a button you can export all the reviews from the listing on Alibaba for the same product and import them into your actual website. So all of a sudden customers come into your website, MikeyNFT.com, and then you're selling beanie frogs for the plague
Right.
with hundreds of reviews, although perhaps you've never had a single sale on your website.
Yeah.
So, but why this is important and why this even exists is social proof is important in
Yeah.
marketing. You want to expose your customer to other customers that look like them that have been through the transformation that you are trying to go through.
Right.
And that is why on my website, and I've this was all done on purpose. The website is freaking crammed with social proof. Everywhere, every scroll, you have to see like, oh, these guys are legit, these guys are legit, these guys
Yeah.
are legit. Even to the point where our website is freaking slow, dude. We have a very
Yeah.
slow
I
website.
scrolled through your website. And I was like, man, that is a lot of comments there on the website. But to your point, proof is in the pudding for me. One of my most successful videos I ever made was a montage of people on my show saying this was amazing.
There we
Social
go.
proof, right?
There we go.
What I think you had a third though. Did you have a third, or were those the two? Social proof
Social proof,
and
identifying and
pain
communicating the
points.
pain points.
Yeah. And if you didn't have a third, if you can't remember, that's fine. We'll move on. But I think that's really anything. All right, I'll ask a more pointed question. I'm interested in the creative part because
Mm,
I've been in creative I went to design school. I've been doing branding and marketing, and I hate it, but I know it's true because I love being creative and I like doing creative things. But when you're talking about monetization and building a business, in my mind, and it's a mantra that you hear, what are the percentages, but it's 10% or less is actual creative impacting. It is, for instance, direct response. I ran the brand for Geico, right? And we had a 400, $500 million
mm,
direct mail marketing
very nice. Wow.
group. And guess what drove response rates? It was not, yes, colors and a couple catchy headlines might help out a tick. It was your mailing list, man. If you did not
Mailing list.
have the right mailing list,
Yep.
your campaign was going to fail, no
Yep.
matter what the hell you did with your creative.
Yep.
And so, do you have similar sentiments with what you learned from direct response and rolling into Web3? Or is there a valuable insight from the creative side of things that you think is helpful?
And I agree with you, by the way, because the first fundamental thing that you always want to do in any of your creatives is to call out your ideal customer. Because if you're calling out to everyone, imagine you're in the metro station and you're trying to call everyone, everyone. No one's going to look at you.
Right,
But imagine you're in the metro station and you say, Mikey, you're going to have two, three people looking back at you.
right,
So you have to call out your customer. And I think that's a very good, very valuable point.
right,
Identifying that you are actually communicating to the right customer.
right.
And that is one of the big reason a lot of people like, again, I built Unfungible off the backbone of a 3,000 subscriber YouTube channel.
Yeah,
As small as it is, we've built a pretty 15 people full time
yeah,
in the business.
yeah.
So all that to say, having the right customers is often better than trying to hit everyone with your brand message.
Right,
And that's going back to, again, and I like how we're finding similarities in our story. Going back to the story of worldwide engineering, I didn't know what my customer wanted, and I didn't know who my customer was, so I couldn't call them
exactly.
out on their needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a one that I have trouble with. And I love your thoughts. And then I promise we'll get to Web3. Um, how do you find your customer? People say, oh, make personas or look at different journeys. Like what are some best practices or things that worked for you to help you find your customers?
How tactical do you want to get?
Give it to me, man. Go for it.
Give it to me.
Tactical me to death, man. Whatever you want to go. I'm the world's your oyster.
Dude, literally, a very simple trick that allowed me to identify exactly what my customer wants, who they are, and where they live. Google Keyword Planner. I went on there and I looked up Web3 marketing. Google will automatically pre-populate all similar long tail keywords that your customers are looking for. And it literally told me that my customers valued literally the second highest ranking word outside of NFT marketing was NFT marketing case study. So all of a sudden I knew my customers were looking for that. I knew that there were 1,000 people per week looking for that specific keyword. I knew they were mainly from the US or from Canada or from Europe or from India. So literally, there are a lot of great tools out there that are going to tell you what is it your customer is looking for. If no one is looking for your keyword, you don't have a business, you have a hobby.
Yeah.
If no one's looking for the keyword that you are, the problem that you're solving, you have a hobby. This is not a business that you have.
Yeah.
So the first thing I would make sure is using these tools to identify what does your customer want. And this is a pro tip right here for everyone. I kid you not, Mikey, right now, if you go on YouTube and you write NFT marketing or Web3 marketing, chances are I'm going to be the first account ranking up on YouTube for very competitive keywords. You know why? And this is a little SEO trick that I have for you. Because I named my video the exact keyword or the natural search terms that my customers were looking for.
Right.
And YouTube is always going to populate and is always going to feed the customer the closest to what is it they're looking for. If you want to learn how to cook Asian cuisine, they don't want to show you how to cook Latin American cuisine. So they use the same keyword. And
I'm assuming you're doing that in the because in the back end you can use not hashtags in the description, but in the back end you can use tagging as well.
So just the title, man. Just the title.
So you're just saying on the title. Yeah, that makes sense.
That is the number one SEO hack that I have. Number two, the description.
Yeah.
So number two, fill your description with all the long tail keywords that your customers are looking for.
Absolutely.
These are the two hacks that I have, man. Like
literally. I love it. You went tactical, and I'm glad you went tactical because I think again, this is one of the things I'm passionate about. What we do here is, I feel like if I were to search that online, again, I just get a lot of bullshit, right? Like, share tangible, relevant knowledge that I can put into action right away to help me out, man. And don't ask me to spend $2,000 to go through 40 hours of your course and I get 20 minutes of actual content, you know? Oh my gosh, it's so frustrating. So I appreciate that, man. Thank you for sharing that. Alpha, that's a Web3 word. And speaking of Web3, we're transitioning, man. I got a hard stop at 5, so we got a half hour. We have literally been talking for almost an hour and a half now, and I feel like we're just getting started. I could go another 4, but we don't have that, so we're going to have to talk about doing some things after here. But let's get into Web3, man. I think I'm really interested more in, obviously I'm fungible, your company. Don't maybe want to spend as much time on like how you started investing in crypto. Let's get the cliff notes of that and then really talk about your journey once you felt like you were grabbing hold of the ecosystem and really growing your brand.
Like a lot of people, I got into the NFT space in late 2021, early 2. And back then I was with my previous business partner. This was the person, Ibrahim, the person I was working on e-commerce with. So we were doing e-commerce together, and then we transitioned into Web3. We started by dabbling into the space, trying to understand the space, investing here and there, and at the same time helping some of the people that we knew within our Montreal, Canada ecosystem run their communities, build out what they have going on, to different levels of successes, to be honest. We weren't that good back then.
Right.
And there was a point I remember in March 2022, Ethereum round tripped from $3,000 all the way to 1.5K.
Oh yeah, that happened. I was there for it.
Dude, no one saw this coming.
Right.
It happened in a matter of days. I remember I received a message one morning from Ibrahim telling me, Leon, I would like to have a conversation together. We meet at a park on a Sunday morning. It was a bright sunny day in beautiful city of Montreal. We a lot of parks. And I meet up with him over coffee and he looks at me, he's like, Leon, I believe we're about to enter a long bear market. And I am not ready for this type of volatility. I'm more like looking forward to the stability that comes with the business.
Yeah.
Would you want to join me back in doing Web2 e-commerce? So going back to what we were doing, this direct response marketing.
Right.
He tells me, Leon, we've done it together. We were very successful together. Let's continue doing it. We work well together.
Yeah.
I look at him, listening to him, and obviously a lot of good points, a lot of reasonable points that he was making. And keep in mind, my first full bear market where I'm actually in the NFT space, so I didn't know what was going to happen. I tell him, give me 24 hours to think about it, and I'll let you know. I'll give you my answer. I took a ride back from the park all the way home on a bicycle, 15-minute bike ride. I arrive home. I open up my phone. I send him a message. I'm like, Ibrahim, I've made my mind. I'm going to stay in Web3. I'm going to stay in NFT space. 1 week after, Unfungible.xyz was live. 2 days after, the first YouTube video case study was published. 5 days after this, our first paying customer signed with us.
And so, all right, man, it's just, it never ends with you, man. We're just going and going. So excited. So you shared a really interesting story there, and there's two things. And I'm going to go back to what we said, right, about research way back in the day. Because seeing the shit hit the fan, we're just on a comment, we went to like $900 ETH. We
Yeah,
went below 1,000, right?
saying that.
And you've already seen this roller coaster. We're all part of this roller coaster. Most people would take that bike ride and be like, I'm out. This is bullshit. So was it the research that you did? Was this just a gut instinct? Like, what helped you make that decision?
Very good question. I would say it was more of a gut instinct. It was passion merged with ignorance. I actually didn't know what I was getting into. Funny enough, like ignorance is a blessing sometimes.
I've heard that many a times on this show. Yeah.
Dude, I had no. If you had told me actually that we were going to spend 24 months in a freaking bear market and liquidity could dry up at any point and I could lose my career at any point and I'd have to spend half the time during the bear market sleeping next to this freaking guy right here in this office, right there. This guy, this is my brother. I would not have, I would have, I don't think anyone in their sound mind would have sticked with it. However, it was, I would say, passion that made me want to give this a try and made me want to be willing to actually try this out.
See, and that was something I was talking about earlier, right? You had a fire for multiple different reasons, but I hear this in so many different forms, but that passion eventually does have to come, because you even said it in the beginning, right? And this is a very common theme. Almost 100% of the people that come on this show would say this: if your end goal is to sit on a beach and have tons of money, game over, right? Like, that is not an end game for anyone. And if you do get there, you're going to quickly realize after the 5th day on the beach doing nothing, you're bored. So what are you going to do? And that's really ladders back to passion. And I would say then you could morph passion into meaning, right? And so that is the end goal, is the meaning. I mean, that's there's a reason why it's one of the most talked about books ever.
Mm,
Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, right? And
mm,
this is because it's just the basic principle of like, if you don't have a mission, a vision, or something to live for, what is there, right? Um, it's hence why it's hence why, you know, I don't never talk religion or politics, but if you talk about
yeah.
what religion is too, there is a sense of purpose in that as well,
Mm,
right? That's why these things exist. Um, and so I'm glad that you said that. I just wanted to kind of add on to that as well.
absolutely.
So now you found the passion. And where does your passion come from with your company? And kind of take us now through you sleeping through the bed and going sleep in the bed with a brother right next to your brother, and how you got through that. That is because partly passion. Where's that passion? Do you just love the Web3 technology? Do you see the power like I did, which is this is brand 3.0 really, and it's
Yeah.
how brands can utilize community effectively will be
Yep.
successful? What is it there?
I agree with that. I think it was my understanding that as human beings, we are ready to go to war and to die for the flag of our country. Belonging and symbolism is one of the strongest things that put people together and bring the
Absolutely.
world together. Web3 NFTs, for the first time ever, allow us to represent our belonging to a community, a movement, a symbol, an idea through the internet, through NFTs. So NFTs are nothing but the flag that show our representation to this community this idea that we're part of.
Yeah.
And I understood this, and I knew that this industry was here to stay. I just had to put my bet in, and that was really what kept me going, man.
Yeah. No, and I love that too. I've never heard anybody describe it that way, and that's a great way to describe it. I I I think of it a little bit different in the sense that I've worked for huge corporations, right? And what marketing and brand always ends up as how do you make as many people as possible happy and not piss off as many people as
Mm,
possible. And what that creates is mediocrity, right? And then marketing really just boils down to how do I spend $100 million and get the best cost per click? Like it's just metric driven bullshit, right? And that's not fun. I am firmly believe that you can create a very sustainable and competitive company through brand and the innovations of Web3 because you have these die-hard passionate people about your products. You can listen to them effectively to get ideas. I'm not saying I actually think DAOs are not helpful because once you get too many people, too many cooks in the kitchen, you're never going to make a decision, right? But if you use your community effectively to hear what they're really trying to say, and Clement and David from Imaginary One's been on the show and said this as nauseum, community is amazing, but you have to hone the skill of listening to the right people, right? And if you can do that, it is a powerful thing that no Web 2 company has. None of them. They spend millions of dollars on focus groups every year talking to random people across the world about like who their quote unquote customer is. You can build a company with your customers. Like that's never really been done before. It's like super cool. So like it's so powerful, and that's kind of
totally,
how I look at it. But I love the way that you explained it as well.
totally.
All right, man. Take us through sleeping on your bed next to your brother. Um, and feel free to actually let's do this. We don't need it because we have a lot of life personal experiences that I really heartfelt thank you for sharing those, because not everybody easily does that. I even got some stories you never shared with anybody.
Mm,
It's amazing to me that I can cultivate that out of people live online. I
you
mean,
do it
what
well.
we talked for like a half hour before this, and now we're just
Yeah.
like we're vibing, man. It's going deep. Take me, what is Unfungible? 2 minute or less elevator pitch. What are you trying to do in the space with your company?
Unfungible, we are trying to build the next generation of communities fueled with NFT technology. Today, we are just limited to what we do, how we help is limited to Web3 brands. Eventually, when NFT is ready, we are going to be helping build the world's strongest communities through the use of NFT technology. My
Love it.
3 decade goal is to have every single human being in the world to have interacted with an unfungible powered brand. That is my personal goal that I have.
Boom, folks, you had it here, the Amazon of NFT community building.
Yeah.
But we don't like Amazon's got a bad name to its brand already. You want the good shiny brand that people want to be involved in. You know what's magical about this, and this is the evolution of Web3 too, is you can accomplish that goal with people not even knowing that they touched your brand, right? Because you're effectively building these community and products. I love that. So now that we have your thesis and your mission statement, take me through, uh, let's say, the last year and what you've learned, what you've built. Kind of the same thing, maybe some missteps, but take me through that last year of kind of building this company.
I think I appreciate the question, Mikey. One
Yeah,
thing we did well that allowed us to be at the position we are today is we remained flexible and we remained adaptable to how the market was moving.
right,
There was a reason why our fourth core value at Unfungible, so core value number 4 is be like water. It is literally that allowed us to stay in, to move with the market. For most of the bear market, we were doing consulting. So how brands would come to us, we would charge a one-time fee,
right.
um, close to $3,000, and we would just give them a go-to-market strategy. Here's the resources. Here's a community that you can join, and here
Yeah,
are consulting calls that you can book, so we can follow you along your journey.
right,
So one-time fee. That was what the market needed. The market was full of people just looking to explore Web3, seeing how they could do it, seeing if this was even the right place to move in as a brand, as a business.
right,
And that was what we were doing. Obviously, as you might know, going with that model is limited because it's a one time payment and it's a lower ticket. So literally some month where we had no customers, some month we'd have like 4 or 5 customers signing up. So yeah, some months were better than others. However, at some point last year, transitioning between Q3 and Q4, we saw the NFT market heat up.
right.
The bull market was very targeted to gaming NFTs, and we saw a lot more liquidity, newfound liquidity coming into this space, coming into this industry. And all of a sudden, we were able to use 2 years of built up reputation, built up goodwill in the marketplace, and built up pretty much brand recognition to roll out what we have today called the Unfungible Space Program. And today we have a team of 15 people working entirely full time on the Unfungible Space Program. Just this one product has allowed us to hit over 6 figures per month in revenue, and we are able through that because we were at the right place at the right time with the right connections. That's what happened, and this was only possible because of 2 years of work, 2 years of built up reputation and connections in the space.
Yeah, I love it. And so, is there I think lessons? Well, what I heard is you were able to stay relevant because of this liquid water mentality,
Yes,
and you're able to stay relevant through a bear. Now, listen, you were sleeping in uncomfortable situations, like you said,
sacrifice.
but looking back, do you think that was the number one key to your success? This kind of liquid mentality, or is there something else that you think has kept you relevant through the good and hard times?
It feels like you're trying to give me the answer. What is it?
I don't know. I really want. I really want. I mean, my answer to this would be, like you said, sacrifice and then listening to
Sacrifice.
what the Web3 market needs, right?
Yeah.
Because to your point, you kind of gave us the answer, which was in the beginning you were doing just the one-time fees. You also realized that that wasn't sustainable from a business model. So then you started kind of transitioning, oh, these spaces things are
Yep.
could be a thing. Let's tackle that and look at that. My question really is there anything else other than this liquid thing that you attribute to your success?
Honestly, man, I will say this: it is skill stacking. Skill stacking. What do I mean by this? It is the multiple skills that I had picked up along the years that have allowed me to
I
be able
love it.
to survive during the bear market.
Mhm.
Number one, I was able to make YouTube videos. I knew how to edit, and I had somewhat of an ability to perform in front of the camera since my
Mhm.
fitness days. So number one. Number two, I had learned how to build websites. So I was able to spin up a very quick website for free, well, using just the softwares because I knew how to do it. Number
Yeah.
three, I was able to when during the bear market, some weeks I would have like one or two sales calls per week. So all of a sudden, every single call that I would get on my calendar was like gold. I had to cultivate it, nurture the lead, give the most value to the lead on the sales call. So
Right.
I had to be a good salesman, and this was something I had exposure to back in my Web 2 days. So I knew how to close. I knew how to take so and go from a discovery call all the way to a closing call and convert these people into money. Number three, the knowledge of Web3. How do we fulfill? And you see how all of a sudden we're stacking a lot of different skills. So
Yeah.
I would say it's this combination of everything. If I didn't know how to do YouTube and I didn't know how to rank my videos, I don't think the first couple months would have been possible, honestly.
I love it. No, no, I think that's right, and I think that's a good insight. Would you say that's your number one skill or thing that pushed you through? Is that skill
Because that was the
stacking?
start. That
Yeah.
was it's like your heart that pumps blood across your body.
Right.
It was the YouTube channel that was pumping leads through the funnel. Without
Yeah.
it, I could be the best salesman, but without a source of lead flow,
Yeah.
what is that good for? So it was YouTube at the
Absolutely.
foundation.
So let's do this, man. Only got 12 minutes left, and I want to give you the opportunity to take the stage to talk about what you're doing today with your company, what you're doing in this space, and then I also like to say, what does the next 6 to 12 months look like for you? And then I have one other question, and then I promised you could hit me with a question or two too if you wanted to. But let's get first through what's happening today. What does the next 6 to 12 months look like for you? And then we'll start wrapping it up.
6 month. So 6 month, I would say continue scaling the product that we already have. We have product market fit. We have proof of concept. We already are working with a large majority of the big Web3 gaming titles out there.
Okay.
The goal would be to branch out of the Web3 gaming and tap into adjacent markets. So to go side market, RWAs, AI, um, the protocols, the token launches,
Yeah.
go side chain and expand on that. Um, 12 months after, man, I will be honest with you. If it's not, because I'm not still not sure, and this is something that either experience hasn't taught me yet or it's hard to quantify. I do not know this specific product where we are today with Unfungible, which is very simply helping brands scale their brand authority and presence through unlocking Twitter spaces.
Right.
I'm still not sure if what the cap of this product is with the market. Is it 500,000 per month? Is it 1 million per month?
Yeah.
Is it more than that? Is it less? Am I going to have to introduce new products? Am I going to have to go BTC, B2B? I don't want to go BTC. I always want to
Oh,
keep all my content for free out
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I still don't know. So it's hard for me to answer the 12 plus month other than just continue scaling.
Well, you're in luck because you got a ginger bearded guy that's got a ton of ideas. We can
give me,
talk.
you give me the wisdom now.
So I love the insight, man. It's been an incredible conversation. I have one more question for you, but before I ask that and we start wrapping it up, um, any questions for me, man? And if you don't, it's totally
What would you
cool.
say from everything that was spoken about? What would you say is the one thing that really you took home and you feel you're going to sleep tonight having felt like you learned something, what is the one
Hmm.
core concept or the one story that was shared with you?
Man, that is phenomenal question. There's a couple that stand out. Immediately my head goes to our childhood experiences and just how uh, being the man, quote unquote, the man of the house at a very young age, and how you interpret that moment in your
Yeah.
life, they can go drastically different ways, right? And I don't think it's any fault of anyone that it goes a certain way. I think the one thing I think about after that conversation is you always have a chance to be better and change that,
Yeah.
right? It's the reflection of that to make yourself better, which is so critically important. Two, I really, really was just fascinated by your uh, direct marketing experience and just a couple of the tidbits you just said right now, like the skill leveling, uh, the product market fit that you were talking about. And then I definitely know for sure the last thing I will be thinking about is incredible story. And thank you for showing, because I think failures always resonate with me more because I always look back at it as a learning lessons. So your merchandise story
Yeah.
with the engineering company was fantastic, right?
Yeah.
And I will reference that. I promise you, I will reference that and use that in future conversations.
I
There's
love
no doubt in my mind.
that.
So if I were to
Yeah.
pick out of all of those things, I would say the engineering merchandise story and our childhood kind of connection and just how those, and that's
Yeah.
what's so powerful about what we do here, right? Is
Yeah.
it's all up into interpretation, man. I'm so frustrated with the world telling me everything is black and white because it's not, right? The world is gray. It is gray all through and through. And the fact that people get on their high horse and say this is the right or the wrong way, it's like, listen, man, you can't tell me that, because I always say this, right? If you all went through what I went through with my mental illness, but let's just take me and lift me up and put me in a ghetto with no dad and my mom addicted to drugs. Guess what I
Mm.
would have done, Leon? I would have done drugs and I probably would have murdered
Oh, yeah.
people, right? And so for somebody to sit on their high horse, sitting in America making $400,000 a year, saying, I can't believe that person would do that. It's
Yeah.
bullshit, man. And I think about that stuff all the time, man. So that is really that conversation of our child is really impactful to me. So
I appreciate that. I
great
appreciate that,
question,
Mike.
man.
And
Great question.
don't hesitate not to censor my name when you repeat the story of the engineering. Like, oh, that
Okay.
guy Leon.
Yeah, that guy Leon, I know him. He's my Web3 homie. So last question, and then we can wrap it up, man. And I will, once you answer my question, I'll do my closing comments and then we'll call it a day. But my last question is, you literally run a space company. You have been a part of spaces, led many spaces, been part of content creation. How was your time on midlife crisis today compared to the other things that you see in the space? Brutally honest, genuine feedback. Let me know, man.
Could you please repeat the last two sentences? I lost you there.
Just be brutally honest. Let me know the feedback. It could be good or bad. I am genuinely interested in your feedback on how today went for you.
How the interview?
Yeah. So,
Dude,
how
it
did
was.
your time on Midlife Crisis podcast go, knowing that
I run.
you run a space company, you've been a part of spaces,
Yeah.
and now this experience is different? And how did it feel for you?
Oh yeah, Mikey. First of all, I appreciate you asking this while we're live. Like this says a lot about you, man. You're not scared
Yeah.
of public feedback. I
Thank you,
personally
man.
feel the overall experience was incredible. You did a very good job at actually diving into what the actual who the actual human being is versus just what they do. Like, hey, Leon, just tell us about yourself. If terrific interviewer, you have very good questions and you dive deeper, which is a skill of a good salesman, by the way. Always get to the reason why. Sure, you did this, but why is it important to you? Why specifically that path, not that path?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
f- terrific interviews, very good questions.
Thanks, man.
If one thing that is distracting, perhaps, I don't know if anyone has ever told you that, I know you're typing on the keyboard
Yes.
on your computer, and the audio might catch that. So
Ah,
perhaps
I
it could
didn't I
be.
didn't realize the audio was picking that up. Yeah, because it's I have to like write and I have to do the keyboard. So I'm gonna have to mess with my gain, man. I appreciate that feedback though. No one's ever said
It's
that.
small
And
observation.
see, thank you for actually giving me feedback that's freaking useful.
Of course.
So I appreciate that. But everything else that you said, man, like and here's what you said a little bit earlier, right? If you're trying to become the Joe Rogan of podcasts in Web3, or you're just trying to create an engaging podcast, the best thing that
Mm,
I can hear is the feedback, like someone from yourself. And it's continued, right? I've had literally, this is the only time I will toot my horn, 100% of the people that come on the show have said similar things to you. So I
mhm,
know I'm on when it comes to product market fit. It's just to continue to how do you monetize? How do you increase exposure? So when you say those things, and then the icing on the cake is I love doing this, it's like this is awesome, this is great because I'm getting compliments for something that I absolutely love to do.
well
So
deserved.
thank you so much, man, and I appreciate it. And to close it out here, I'm just going to reflect on you and our conversation. There's many things that strike me, but one of the first things that comes to my mind is for someone that said they grew up sitting in the back of the classroom, you're incredibly charismatic. You did an incredible job. One of the things that you did more than most guests is you and you've studied this because I have too. There was not a lot of ums and ahs. I even catch myself doing that, right? But how you circumvent that is, and I noticed this, is you just kind of look off. And I can tell that you're deep in thought and you're trying to create and craft a meaningful response.
Mm,
And that means a lot to me because that's all I concentrate. Like that is what I do. If I don't do that well, then I've got a shit product, right?
mm,
So to see your guest doing that was like super meaningful to me because I know you were really engaged in trying to think hard. So I appreciate that. That was one of the first things that stood out to me. Two, I think the lesson that everybody needs to hear, one of the main ones taking from this, and what I took from the beginning and the middle of the conversation is just this repetition, just do it. And how you even telling the story, which most people don't do, is like you studied dating. You were scared. You actually put in the reps on well, how does a date work? Well, there's a meet and greet, there's a follow up, right? It's almost like marketing in a sense, but you're doing it
yeah,
yourself. And you broke it down into these different things and took the time and spent with it. Two, and then three, you're just not afraid to try things, which is
mm,
another huge thing for people to understand. And I love the fact that one of the one things that you said, I think it was like in the middle, is you still feel like you don't know much and that you're learning every day. And it,
mm,
it was a product of being an overachiever,
mm.
but I can tell you've had success, you've built really interesting things, but I can genuinely feel the humbleness coming from you too. And
Thank you.
that is so hard to do because I have so many conversations on this show about ego destroying somebody in the
Mm,
beginning or middle of their life, and they have to recover from that and learn really hard lessons. And whether you've had those and learned those lessons, I don't get the ego from you, which is incredibly invaluable, especially as you're getting notoriety and building something. So honestly,
oh
I
man,
get the genuine stuff that I hope I portray. I got that from you too. And it's brother from another mother, man. I mean, like I said before, believe it or not, I think I delivered on my promise, which was we were going to sit around a virtual campfire and we were going to become friends live online. And that's what just happened. You got
we
a friend
absolutely
in
have.
me in Web3, man. And I really, really mean this. I hope this is the beginning of something special and we continue to grow and learn together, man, because that's what it's all about.
Mikey, man, this was you not only delivered on the promise, but you over delivered.
Thanks,
Unlike my
man.
story with the merch.
How to do it. It was
So,
fantastic. That was
okay.
fantastic. And we're going to cut the hell out of this podcast up, and Twitter and crypto Twitter is going to be seeing a lot of us in the future because there are so many gems.
Likely
Um,
one of my favorite interview, by the way.
Thanks,
So
man.
it's a big shout out to you, Mikey.
I appreciate it. So much love. And with that being said, if you can stay on just a minute or two after when I shut it down, Leon, we
Happy
can
to.
just chat a couple of minutes or two after because it won't be live and it'll fade off. Should have said that in the beginning. That just rang a bell. But with that being said, Mikey G loves you all. Leon is the mother effing goat. That was an incredible conversation. We have well over 100 people watching us at one point. Actually, still right now. Thank you for all coming on. I don't think I've had this many people for a while on a podcast. So you all are amazing. We love you all. You will see me Friday, 2 p.m. with playfix.io. We're doing the Plague Space, and then Sunday whiskey tasting. Check my Twitter out for all the updated information. I love you all. Mikey G and Leon are out.
Keep rocking.